same mistake over and over, I think, with a lot of our clients, where they treat compliance training as a one and done or a check the box kind of mindset. And I think with WYSR, what we help and what we see is if we understand what their policies are, their standard operating procedures, we can help them deliver that in a fashion that's automated and recurring. And so they're not missing out on those yearly updated or quarterly, whatever they'd like their training to be set at. We can help them fix that with the bite-sized training, the features that we have on WYSR with policy, signing policies and digitizing that, having those handbooks on the portal for the team members. So I think all of that kind of helps the employees and helps the overall organization from facing compliance regulatory issues.
So many times compliance training takes place once a year. They check the box, file the form away, and that's really kind of the end of it. Whereas what we found specifically regarding compliance, if you think about like a professional vocation, like a doctor, a teacher, a lawyer, right? They have to take continuing education units, and they do that to keep their skills sharp. That typically doesn't happen in the compliance area within a casino property. However, from a risk mitigation standpoint, let's keep training on compliance. Just sharpen the skills and keep it top of mind in all that they do in their specific area of operations. The WYSR Core platform has training and education opportunities available for everyone from the frontline workers, as we refer to them, you know, a bar back, a server, bartenders, other people in food and beverage, slot techs. And, you know, certainly from a compliance standpoint, there's the base training. And then what our platform allows the casino to do is to take the training to another level, serve it up 24/7. So, you know, it creates opportunities for people to not say, oh, I didn't get the memo. Whereas, you know, they're doing training either on property or sometimes, you know, in a training room or environment or whatever. And also with regard to staffing, you know, casinos are 24/7, you know, 365, right? So one of the most important factors from a training standpoint, specifically around compliance, is to keep it consistent so that everyone is getting the right message at the right time, that, you know, certainly being trained on the compliance issues around their specific area of work, if you will. You know, for example, a server or bartender, they have to have alcohol awareness training, and that needs to happen on an ongoing basis. And then we supplement that with hospitality training. So how to become a better, you know, bar back, bartender, server. And then certainly being consistent across the entire organization is key. It also builds expectations among the team members that they're going to get trained, that their training is being monitored and sometimes scored. So it creates more accountability on the team member standpoint.
It doesn't happen very often that you're not in compliance, right? Because we have entire departments that are dedicated to, that's what they do, right? They have an entire, like there's a compliance director generally, and that person's sole job is tracking and ensuring that that property stays in compliance regarding everything from Title 31 to alcohol awareness, safety, even to a certain extent falls in some of those categories, right? So I think it's hard to imagine that most of them aren't in some form of compliance, right? I think they're always chasing it, right? Like that's the hardest part that's probably like the biggest asset that WYSR can assist with, is that we help that stay, so it's easier to chase those down, right? So you're going to be in a real world when you're working in a property that has, 2,000 employees, you're constantly chasing somebody, and they can tackle new people and new hires. That's easy. You get that box, right? But it's a reoccurring piece that is the people that are out on FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, right? And people who are on vacation and ensuring all of those things. And so I think the WYSR product is probably the best friend for that department that can help them actually be able to track those people down and making sure that they stay in compliance. Because I do think that that's their sole job. That's all they are responsible for, is ensuring that they stay in compliant.
Those small internal controls or things that, again, people aren't following too. So it could be coming from, in-house. There was Boyd just had a cyber attack. That has to do with compliance in sort of a way as well, because maybe your staff isn't up on the PCI training or their cybersecurity training, or it's not getting consistently shared, because a lot of these hacks are coming in through opening a wrong email. Something as simple as that, or there's all different ways. But I think that, again, has to be with consistent training coming from the compliance department too. And I guess there's HR compliance, right, Brenda?
PCI compliance, and that kind of falls under its own
Security.
like IT security. They have Palms has there's probably 60 people in like some of those divisions that are that large, that are, that's their sole purpose. And they do a really good job. And a lot of the casinos, because it's become
data protection, and
it's something, shit happens every single day. It seems like you hear about somebody with some form of, somebody called the front desk and they said, look at it, right? Like, people make simple mistakes. And so companies are spending hordes of amounts of money on entire divisions that do nothing but help with cybersecurity and PCI compliance, and everything's gotten so much more heightened. But there's also the criminals are so much more sophisticated now that it's truly frightening. I know I worry, like, when my mom would go online, and it's just horrifying, right? Like, to think of the simple things that she couldn't go on Facebook because she would click something and give somebody some information. And it's just, that's a sad situation, but that's the reality of the world that we live in. And it's a very sad thing, but you have to be super sharp. And if it seems skeptical, it is skeptical.
Looking at one of our industry news wires this morning, in fact, I see it now, there's an undisclosed property in Louisiana where the GM just lost his gaming license and got fired because he failed to disclose what were perceived as fraudulent, activities going on in the casino. That can mean a lot of things. Everything from collusion in terms of gambling to not reporting credit card transactions to missing cash. But again, if you think about that from an overarching standpoint, it all comes back to compliance. And now here's the top guy. This is a guy who makes a lot of money. He's not only out of a job, he's lost his gaming license, which probably puts him out of the industry. So that's just a real world example that happened literally this week.
We have actually a pretty robust compliance library, and the challenge was kind of giving that legal and jargon and lots of information and creating it in a way that is easy to understand. Pretty much anyone can take it and get the basics and get the things that they need to know from it. So we definitely work hard on making the language accessible. We also strip away that jargon by adding activities for them to retain the knowledge, quizzing, and whatever that casino or property main practices are that they want, we will put that in there so that we're hitting those home. But we also just talk about basically, for say email security, breaking it down to a micro course and it being just check your login, make sure your passwords are correct, don't share them, lock your screens, protect guests info, like it's your own. So even in our hospitality courses, we have that information about what they're supposed to do at the front desk with guests information. So just quick, easy, retainable micro learning with these little refresher points that you want to get across to your staff, I think is important. Alcohol awareness in many states has to be regulated by either a post-secondary educational board, or some states just require a specific company like TIPS or something that's out there. Usually alcohol awareness training is every 3 to 4 years. Some places it's every 5 years. However, on our properties, many of the properties we work with, especially even on tribal properties that we work with, they may want recurring training. So we'll usually work with them to know what their standard operating procedures are, what their best practices are, their house rules on over service. It's really important to get people to know nationally that it's illegal to serve someone that's intoxicated. So understanding those that's statewide. I mean, that's nationwide, and you can be held liable. Some states like Nevada, there's some loopholes. So state by state, a bar might not be held responsible for over service. And that's why training's so important, because that training is protecting them from being sued by the person that might have gotten into an accident afterwards. Fights can escalate. Someone might have allergies, or they might be highly intoxicated or on drugs in a casino. So you have to know how to handle those situations with some grace, and you can't just go up to a person and be like, oh my God, you have red eyes and you're falling. They might have a disability and have stumbling, or training helps you see those and be able to identify those places. Also with fake IDs. Fake IDs now, I don't even know how people are going to have fake IDs now with all the real ID, but I'm sure they're going to find a way. It's just important to keep people, again, I keep saying the word refreshed, and it's really funny because that, whether people like that word or not, it seems to be the word we keep using, keeping your team recharged and refreshed on those core rules of your house. Not to serve, go to a manager if you need to cut someone off, always give someone an extra glass of water, always offer food. So there's these common tips that your team needs to be aware of.
The flexibility of the WYSR platform allows us to customize it to each individual property, right? And each individual state, which is a huge thing that is you're not just getting a CAN thing that may not be applicable to your area. Everything can be made and customized directly to that specific properties.
If a property, the WYSR platform also offers, if you have to go through a company that is like a nationwide company or specific to a region, you can always keep their licensing or their cards on WYSR as well. They can upload those certifications right to WYSR as well.
One of the issues at hand, they largely refer to as cashless gaming, right? So many more casinos now are allowing you to swipe debit cards at table games. The old days of walking in the casino with a giant roll of cash in your pocket are sort of gone. And the other thing too that's played into that is, I don't know if you've been to a casino lately. There was just a story, and I don't even know if it was true, but a typical ATM withdrawal transaction in a casino runs between $9.95 and $15.95, right? So people just aren't willing to do that. So from a compliance standpoint, there's another layer now, right, of data security, of financial security around, managing credit card or debit card transactions that used to all happen at the cage. You could get a cash advance at the cage. And now, again, because of the cost of ATM transactions, people just are going away from it. Either bring their money or they're going to use a debit card. So that's kind of that's on everybody's mind right now, too. The other thing that is starting to creep in, there's not a lot of data on it yet, is crypto. I mean, there's actual crypto redemption kiosks now. Certainly in some casinos, you see them, in everything from convenience stores now. And that, that's a giant unknown. I don't see that being a big factor in casino anytime soon. But certainly the education piece from managing financial transactions directly at tables and inside from a debit card is definitely top of mind for everyone at this point because of the move away from cash.